Cool, can everyone hear me out in the back there? Just give a little thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, I'm just going to get used to this one. So Ashley asked me to talk at the WordCamp, and I thought, okay, I can't really talk about something too technical, and I kind of want to capture everybody. So I thought, let's try and just recap everything, but let's give it a bit of a title as well. So I thought, why not go bold and just try and shift everybody's mindset a little bit. Just play a little bit of catch up, and maybe we all come on the same page, and maybe we can see where we're going with all of this. So a little bit about me. So I'm a web developer. I work at Themes, and I am an absolute WordPress enthusiast. So what that means is I spend about, I'd probably say about 12 hours a day in WordPress, which is quite a lot, but it really doesn't seem like it because, as they say, time flies when you're having fun. So that works for me perfectly. I'm also a very occasional blogger and absolute full-time lover of music, guitars, absolutely everything. And I'm a musician as well. Okay, so I've just kind of thought, let's go from the past and then just see, how we can arrive at our prospective future with WordPress. So I've just jotted down a couple of points here. So we've got 0.7 gold, we've got Kubrick Theme, admin username, and B2 cafe log. Does any of this mean anything to anyone? Raise your hand if it does. Okay, excellent. So for everybody who didn't raise their hand there, so what we're going to do is this is WordPress of the past. So 0.71 gold was the first ever version of WordPress. So we'll jump just down the list there to B2. So B2 was the original product that created essentially WordPress today. So B2 was a content management, or probably at the time just received as a blogging platform, and it was dying. It really wasn't being used. Nobody was updating it, and obviously everybody knows who Matt Mullenweg is. Matt Mullenweg and Mike Little decided, okay, we like B2, we want to see it do something more, so we'll create WordPress. So 0.71 gold was basically a combination of WordPress and B2 together. A lot of the stuff still looks like B2. All the functions are called B2 something or other, not WP something or other like they are now. And it was very much a very basic version of what we have today, but we'll get a little bit to that later. So the Kubrick theme is, I'm sure everybody's seen that lovely WordPress theme with a big blue bar at the top. And that's Kubrick. That stayed around for about 4 or 5 years, and everybody got quite a lot bored with it. So that wasn't really ideal. But, it survived, and it was revolutionary in its time. The admin username is, like Jeff mentioned earlier, about secure passwords and keeping everything safe. The admin username used to be the only username that you would arrive with when you get your WordPress site. And because of that, it's not very secure. So the first thing people do is they search, how many passwords can I try and crack with the admin username? You're essentially giving people half of your login credentials. So that's not very ideal. So I thought let's just run through a little bit of where we've come from with WordPress. So as I mentioned earlier about B2 and 0.71, I don't know, are these screenshots clear out in the back there? Basically, this is 0.71. I installed this the other day. Doesn't really look like much, does it? But that was WordPress. So probably about, 5 or 6 years ago, that was WordPress, or probably a bit longer than that. About 8 years, yeah. But still very young, but that used to be WordPress. It doesn't really feel like it now, but it's the truth. We often forget where we've come from, so let's take a look. So then we've got WordPress 1.0.1. As you can see down the bottom there, it's tagged as miles. So that's often been a trend now to kind of relate it back to a jazz musician and get a bit of a feel for, match the musician's style with the feel that they're trying to evoke with that version of WordPress. But it still doesn't really look like much. This is classic, by the way, this theme. I mean, everybody kind of, I'm sure, went through a phase where you go, okay, install WordPress, delete Kubrick, delete classic, and then install whatever theme you've chosen. Didn't really look great. WordPress for designers. This is WordPress not by designers, for sure. It's really not ideal. But, constant improvement is the name of the game, really. So this is WordPress 2. And as you can see, the UI has gotten a little bit better, a bit more user-friendly. It's all about getting your content out there, really. So I suppose they didn't really have to care about the UI, but it's improved. So we're moving in a forward direction, which is important. And that's Kubrick, for anybody who hadn't seen it before. If anybody started twitching because they're seeing Kubrick, I apologize. It's really not ideal. But it's stuck around, and it's a very well-designed theme, actually. This is 2.7, is it? Yes. That's 2.7, so radical UI change in 2.7. It looks much more like what we know today, but Kubrick stuck around. So I don't know why, but they just kept it there, just for fun. WordPress 3 was the big push, really. So the UI is similar, but they changed it up a little bit fresher. You can see there's an update nag in the top there, which wasn't there before. And 2010. So 2010 was the big push for WordPress, where now every year a default theme comes out with WordPress. So 2010 has an updated structure for the time. It really sort of changed the way people perceive default themes. So a lot of people would work off of Kubrick, and it's not very flexible. But something like 2010, I've personally built several websites with it. You don't even have to use the base CSS code when you build a child theme with it, because the markup is actually really solid. But this is essentially a really good starting point for what WordPress is evolving into. So this is just a bit of a recap of the past with WordPress and just where we've come from, essentially. But it's important to always know from where we've come, where we are now, and where we can potentially forecast ourselves going in the next few years. So this is where we are now with WordPress. So we've got the 3.4 release cycle. 3.5 is on the way, potentially, I think it's December, if I'm correct. We have the Zen Writing Mode, which everyone I'm sure loves. If you click that little button in your WordPress editor, everything goes white, and it's a big dramatic effect, and you can just type, which is absolutely amazing. I personally use it all the time. I've even changed the way that I write on a desktop just to match how I write in WordPress. We have the theme customizer, which, who hasn't heard of the theme customizer? No hands? Excellent. Okay, the theme customizer basically allows you to visually change things like link colors, various options that they provide in a side panel, and it reflects live on the right. So it's just a way for you to easily see what's going on. And for the developers in the audience, many new APIs. So I'll touch a little bit more on that later. And this is where we are now. So this is 3.4.2, installed about 5 days ago, with the 2011 theme. So as you can see, there's a lot more focus on the UI now in the back end, a lot more focus on your experience, really. And the UI for the front end has changed with a new theme that looks very similar to 2010, except a bit of a revamp and a bit of freshness. But where does premium stuff come into all of this? So as Jeff mentioned a couple of premium services earlier, premium themes, premium plugins, hosting such as WP Engine, Managed WP is a premium service. And that's all great. You've got hosted services, you've got managed WordPress hosting. I mean, what Jeff didn't mention is WP Engine actually does everything for you. So they will fix a security hack for you. They will update WordPress for you, update plugins, they do everything. So it's really amazing. And the key point here is WordPress for business. So WordPress has evolved into something more than just, I'm going to download WordPress, install it, choose a theme, and see what happens. It's evolved into this completely new ecosystem of, you would potentially go and buy a premium plugin, contact a developer who is somehow part of an agency, who then interfaces with the customer and ultimately creates something for all of us, which is the end user. But where does that take us? That takes us down here. So essentially what this comes down to is WordPress is now focusing a lot more on us. So we use our devices all the time. There's this concept in television media of the third screen. So they say, okay, we're watching an episode of Lost, but we want to interact with our audience. So they post a question saying, where should character X go in the story? Almost like a choose your own adventure of sorts. And you would go online on your mobile device and answer the question. And based on community feedback, they dictate what happens in the next episode, which is really amazing. So WordPress has obviously picked up on how we use mobile and has decided that mobile is the next evolution. Matt mentioned that in State of the Word as well. And the internal OOP API, so what that means is OOPS, or OOP, for example, stands for Object-Oriented Programming. So that's more technical ways of producing code, producing software. So instead of writing one function that does everything, you would write a class which then becomes an object which you can extend and work with. An example of this is WordPress has done this now with a new theming API. So all theme-related information is handled by a completely new system. And with, you know, they always say, you know, there's that famous quote from Uncle Ben, that with great power comes great responsibility. And this whole approach to new APIs has taken a long time. But all the steps that we've taken through 0.7.1, through 1.0, 2.0, has all led up to this, which is very important. And that's where we are, the future. So that's WordPress 3.5.1, or 5 beta 1 rather, and the new 2012 theme, which I'm actually currently running on my blog. This is a great showcase of where WordPress has come from and where we're about to go. And the one thing that we've always done is this. We've had a great idea. The great idea has led to an innovation. And everybody goes, oh wow, you know, you guys were able to produce this amazing feature for WordPress, but it might not be the cleanest code. So that's the first step of it. It's really great to be able to produce and innovate and create new stuff. And what's always happened with WordPress, as we can see throughout everything there, is there's always been this great need for innovation. But what's also really important is to keep in mind where we're going. So as an example, we at WooThemes have recently, in our latest framework, decided, okay, our sidebar management functionality is great, but it's a little bit old. And maybe WordPress, you know, has evolved to a point where we can do it a little bit better. So we decided, let's build a plugin that is a reimagining of the original functionality with a slightly different slant, just to make it a bit smoother and keep it with the times. And that's where the unlearn and relearn comes in. So we often go, okay, we've got this theme, and we like themes a lot. So we know how to do themes, but maybe we don't know how to do plugins. So we know that a theme has functions.php, everybody loves functions.php, and you can drop any code in there and it will work. So you can write a custom post type in your theme, you can write anything in your theme really, but it will work, but it's a bad practice. It's certainly a bad practice. I mean, if, for example, if one was to take a plugin like WooCommerce, which is, sure, probably tens of thousands of lines of code, and put that in your theme, that's not exactly ideal. So that's where the relearning part comes in. So we unlearn old habits and relearn new stuff. And we can only really know how to unlearn and what we need to unlearn and what we need to relearn if we know where we've come from. So based on what we've seen already from 0.7.1, not much has really changed. You know, we love WordPress, and the community drives what WordPress does and WordPress innovation. So things like, has anyone ever had that feeling where you're sitting with someone and you go, oh, wouldn't it be great if WordPress did this? You know, or you're sitting in a conversation and someone says to you, you know, it would be amazing if WordPress did that. You know, those key moments are where the innovation happens. So we, as the community, drive all of that innovation. So things like the theme customizer. Somebody sat down and said, wouldn't it be great if I could make some changes and then see it happen instantly? And then somebody else went and did it, which is exactly how things work. So if there's enough demand and enough drive from the community just to stand up and say, we want these features. You know, another example of that is WP Engine. Somebody clearly got tired of hosting that was terrible. So they decided to create a WordPress hosting company. Bundled with that, in things like customer development and research, they've probably came across the fact that people don't like to update WordPress. And they think, okay, I've got 100 client websites all running on different servers, and now I've got to go update them all. So if WordPress 3.4.2 comes out, and then the next day 3.4.3 comes out, you have to go and update WordPress across maybe 100 different websites manually, which is really not great. So WP Engine handles that for you. Things like Manage WP handle that for you. And the salient point is it all comes from this need. So the need to innovate and the need for a really great idea to come out. So I said there earlier about your great ideas. That's exactly what it is. It's all coming out with a great idea to make sure that we can keep the community going and keep WordPress alive. And Core helps us to do so, because that's exactly what it's there for, really. The whole project is an open source community-based project. And as we can see earlier from everything, not much has really changed in the way that WordPress is. Themes look great, plugins add features, the community innovates, and Core makes it all happen. So we need to just stick to those kinds of principles, I think, because if we try and make a plugin do something that it's not supposed to, or we try and make themes act like plugins, we're not really serving our own need. And because of, there's no one person that can really take kind of responsibility for this, I suppose. One of those habits that we need to unlearn and relearn is the quick wins of adding features via a theme, or making plugins and installing 500 plugins that all do the same thing. They're all quick wins. So we need to just go back to these core principles. If one looks at WordPress.com and Kubrick Theme and the default theme and Classic even, as all those old themes were, they were skins. They were basic themes that made the site look great and focused on the content. So I've kind of been toting this little motto around in the office at Woo Themes is the themes should look awesome and act lazily. So it's not to say that the developers should act lazily, but the theme itself should just be a skin. It should focus on one thing, which is looking absolutely beautiful and making the content look as such. So, we all in this room are absolutely awesome because we've done all of that and more. And that's just, that's the WordPress community at work, really. So I just sat down and off the top of my head, those are a few things that I came up with. So things like a post types API. It's always kind of been there, but we made it happen because we, the community, said, wouldn't it be great if we could have a post type API to make it easier for us to make post types? Or wouldn't it be great if we could run multiple WordPress websites off of one installation? So we've got multi-site. Wouldn't it be great if we could do e-commerce with WordPress? We have WooCommerce. And all through all of this, we have some standard principles, which are, WordPress does this. Okay, so WordPress does one thing and it does it amazingly well. WordPress democratizes publishing. I can't remember who it was who mentioned it earlier, but it was mentioned earlier that WordPress has turned every single one of us into a publisher. And those are, everybody has core values. And that is the core value behind WordPress, is democratizing publishing, letting the community drive the project, keeping things open source, and keeping it awesome. So the ultimate takeaway is, what are you going to ship today? What are you going to do with WordPress to innovate, create, and make it awesome? Thanks.